Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us this morning. And we're happy to have Andrea here with us this morning to HR. We're really looking forward to this webinar. And for those of you who don't know, I'm Sumner McCulley with the Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce, and I do the events with them. So first off, we're just gonna kind of quickly go around and everyone can introduce themselves and their company, and then Andrea will take it from there.
That's great.
So Tracy, if you would like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
So I work at Martini Film Studios, and I'm kind of right up front with all of our clients, our guests, everything like that. So customer service is a huge aspect of my job. So yeah.
Oh, great to have you on the call, Trace. And it's actually nice if people do turn on their videos. We are a very small group today, so it makes it a little bit more personal. I think we're what, 6, 7 people on the call, so it might be just nice to do that and get it a bit more interactive, I guess. So thanks for being on the call, Tracy. It's awesome.
No problem.
Thank you, Tracy. And then Christine.
Good morning. I work for the Township of Langley, so we work at the Recreation Center, so we've got lots of customer service.
Hi,
Excellent.
Christine.
Yeah.
And then Alexandra.
Morning.
Good
I work
morning.
with Alternative Cartage, and we're a local transportation company. And in our industry, it's a pretty rough industry dealing with a lot of construction people. So our kind of focus as a company is to build that customer relationship that a lot of our competitors don't. So customer service and communicating with our customers is super important for us, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you. Perfect. So Andrea, yeah, if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Sure, I do. Well, good morning, everybody. And it's great to be here. I work with Go2HR. I lead the industry training department at our organization. And for those of you who are not quite as familiar with Go2HR, we are the Human Resources and Health and Safety Association for the tourism industry here in BC. So we are very industry driven, and we're a non-profit, and we provide support and guidance and resources for employers and as well job seekers, but main focus on employers in the industry. And that goes from human resources to recruitment to health and safety and training. Like we do food safe. I run a program called Superhost and Superhost customer service training. So there is a number of programs we support the industry with. And then of course now during the time of COVID, we've been playing quite a key role to support the industry with resources. And if you have a look after the call, maybe on our website, there might be quite a few resources which be helpful for you as a smaller business. We have a restart website, like a restart section right on our homepage. We do have FAQs, HR resources, any questions employers actually been coming up with over the last 3 months. We've all kind of put this in a nicely central place, so it's easily accessible for you. And then we run a job board specifically for the industry where employers can actually post job postings and vacancies they have for the organization for free. And then we balance that out with kind of working with job seekers as well. We have a career newsletter and getting people in the industry. So that's our main role right now, specifically really carving out more of a supporting role than we ever have before, I think, to help people. And we run different webinars. We have done just a 5 webinar series in collaboration with Destination BC. And this one was one of them I hosted last week. So, and then someone I were talking before that, if we'd be able to do one for your community. So it's great that being able to make this happen and yeah, get going on this. So today, and being such a small group, please feel free to interrupt anytime and ask questions. I want to make sure that this is not just kind of a cookie cutter kind of presentation here, and it's just me to keep on talking away. I will pause frequently. I like your input. If you have questions which are not addressed and are really very specific to your organization, we do have time to talk about this today. It's a fairly compact, short kind of presentation I have for you, but I want to make sure that that they're good key takeaways for you today. So that's important, I think. So what I have on my agenda, and by no means, as I said, is very flexible. I like to talk a little bit about your customer's journey in your organization, or we're talking about Township Langley. What does it look like for the visitors coming over? Guest communications and expectations, how has that changed in a COVID impacted environment? And then I like to talk a little bit about responding to some challenging situations. And Alexandra, maybe you then, when we come to that point, maybe you even have a few examples what's kind of happening at your business, and what are some of the situations you might encounter, and then we can chat about this a little bit. So a hands up maybe, do you think that guest expectations have changed during the COVID times? Dramatically, maybe a little bit, maybe you can give me a hands up, or what do you think? Has there been a change? Yeah, Tracy said there's been a change. Yeah, for sure. There's actually been, I came across a study the other day from Ipsos, and that brought some light to the shifting expectations of, Canadian guests, customers, when now this business is open. And 3 out of 5 Canadians said that they find health and safety now as equally important as customer service. So I found that really interesting, actually. So when we talk about expectations, I like to talk a little bit about a customer journey map. Who is familiar with, people on the call here, who has heard or has worked with the concept of customer journey mapping before? If I get another thumb up there, maybe, if anybody has. Okay, so it's fairly new to everybody, as it looks like. I want to kind of chat a little bit about customer journey mapping, and actually what a customer journey map is, and why do we talk about this? So customer journey map is a really good tool to identify your customer interaction with your customers coming or visitors to the community, and identify the different interactions and look at different key touch points where you can enhance the customer experience. And it's basically a roadmap, like a journey. And it gives you the opportunity to identify key touch points where you might have to modify your services, and you modify your customer service and your communication. And I want to show you an example, and it's a pretty basic example on what that looks like. So I drew up a customer journey map template here. And when we're looking at customer journey mapping, think about a customer who kind of goes through the whole journey with you as an organization. So, before service, before they even come to a location, before they come to your business, during service, when they actually interact with you as an organization, and then afterwards, what's their impression? How do they share their evaluation? They might post an online review, and we know how powerful online reviews are nowadays, right? And they might talk to friends, this whole power of word of mouth. So there is quite a lot going on. Hi, Elia, welcome to the call. So I want to kind of talk you through a little bit on that. And if you're talking about customer journey mapping, we're looking at these different touch points. For example, before service, before a customer decides to do business with you, they probably have done some research, they might have called you, or they have done a booking with you, and you communicate with them before they even get to your premises. Let's say through an email, or you might send them some information about processes and services. So that's kind of an example of a touch point before they come to your organization. And before service is kind of the time as well where they do the research and they listen to other people. That's kind of the time and the point in the time of the journey where expectations are formed and expectations are influenced by others. And then we have the during service. Let's say they go on a wine tour, or they come to a hotel in Langley, or they come to a restaurant for a dining experience. So the touch points is anything from a physical location, a website, and then any touch points they have with you and your staff specifically. Employees and frontline staff have a tremendous impact on these different touch points throughout our customer journey, and the power to create these positive guest experiences. And then after service, you know, what's your follow-up? What does an online review look like, and how you react on this as an organization? So we're looking at the 3 different phases here. And then from there, what kind of does the customer feel? What's kind of an experience has been created for them? And now what you can do, you look at your customer journey map on a regular kind of operational day, and that's a great team exercise. If you have a small team or a bigger team, get everybody involved to really list what are the different touch points within your organization for a customer, and get feedback. And then you can look at that and say, okay, now how has COVID-19 impacted that customer journey? And then what you want to do, discuss with your team different touch points throughout, which might need to be modified, or they need to be adapted to ensure a healthy and safe environment for your guests, or they have to be adapted in order to comply with health and safety regulations, other guidelines you have in place. And then you map out a second kind of cycle on, okay, this is what we need to do now. And it's a really good exercise to look into the little details, like operationally, what needs to be changed to still create a great experience for your customers, but still be able to provide that safe environment. And there are a lot of opportunities as well. So for example, in before service, before you might have sent an email to confirm a service or let them know about information before they come to see you, maybe now you want to give them a call and say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we do to provide a very safe environment for you, and you might as well want to share, and this is what's available in our community right now. These are the businesses which are open, these are the businesses which are not quite open. So for example, if you have a visitor coming to Langley, they probably want to know what else they can do within the community. And I think then that forms their expectations as well, and gives an opportunity for you to answer any of their questions. And you can be very clear on how you integrated your guidelines and health and safety policies into your operations and still be able to provide that great experience. Or if you have a very busy location and you might encounter that you have to do lineups outside your door, you know, people can get frustrated about this quite a bit. So here is an opportunity to influence that touch point where you might have one of your team members going to talk to people in the lineup, let them know how long the waiting time is, and you know, what else they can expect once they get into the business. I'm thinking of a restaurant, for example, you know, share with them the daily features of the day, of the menu while they're waiting, and kind of start a bit of a rapport with them on before they even get on site on your premises. And then on the after service, you might want to send a thank you note out, being it by email or a little card, whatever is available. It's really helpful to stay connected, but I think, and getting feedback, but I think the opportunities here is to stay connected with your customers while they're actually on your premises. Ask them for your feedback and find out what they think, and you know, let them know, hey, what else can we do better? Where are we at? I think that's really helpful. So that's kind of an overview on the customer journey map, and we will be referring back to this in a little while. But this is a very basic roadmap where you let's start at the very beginning, go through all the touch points, get your team involved, and highlight to them the importance of being part of that creation of that experience, and looking at these different touch points. We've done this with quite a few organizations, and it's a really helpful exercise. The other piece around customer service culture, you know, you might have had staff, they've been home for now the last few months and they just come back, or you worked at reduced capacity where you've only been able to have part of your staff members coming. now it's about reinforcing your customer service culture, reinforcing your service standards. What does your company stand for, and how you're integrating this whole COVID-19 piece around policies and guidelines, how you integrate that into your service, and ensuring that there's an alignment across your whole organization, so everybody kind of speaks the same language on that. And you know, it helps to clarify expectations here as well. An example I can think of is you know, greeting protocol, and a lot of businesses, you know, might be you know, have to wear a face masks. So now you're losing a little bit of the opportunity for a customer coming in to pick up on nonverbal cues, like you can't see a person smiling, you know, the sound is a bit muffled when they talk to you, or you have installed plexiglass, which kind of provides a bit of a physical barrier. So the importance of really stepping up on communication and nonverbal communication in these times, I think that's key. And provide a heightening understanding of each other's needs and the need to really step it up on communication, so that you'll be able to provide a full overview on where you are as the organization, and your customers know what you're doing. And I think the key focus at the very beginning, and you probably have done that already, train your staff, know you know, what they need to know, make sure they're all on the same page in regards to service standards, and really kind of have everybody on the same page. I'm gonna pause here for just a quick second and just wanted to see, are there any questions? And there's a chat function you feel free to use. Are there any questions in regards to the piece around customer journey mapping, or the customer service culture piece? Anybody has any questions they'd like to raise, and feel free to put it in the chat box, or we're a small group, you can unmute yourself obviously anytime and ask a question. Okay, great. So I talked about the team and the importance of your team, and you might have different sizes of teams, between 1 or 2 people, or you might have 10 or 15 people. Keeping your staff engaged and empowered, specifically during these times, and keeping the spirit and the confidence up, I think it's really important. You might have still some people who are working from home, so try to balance that and include that both groups are involved. You want to be supportive and ensure that you have their back, and provide them all the tools they need to be the best at work. And then listen to them. You know, they do your work day to day. They're out on the front lines, on the field. They have a lot of insights. So give them a voice and ask their suggestions, ask their feedback, specifically when we're talking about the customer journey mapping. Check in with them on a regular basis. What's working, what's not working? What kind of scenarios are they coming across? And, you know, recognize their work. Show appreciation for them showing up. And I know, and you probably heard this too, a lot of organizations have a hard time to have employees coming back, because they're either quite comfortable with the current CERB payment, or they are not ready to come back. I mean, everybody has different anxiety levels, and it's important to acknowledge that. Different comfort levels. This does not just count for your employees, but as well for your customers, right? Consumer confidence is a little bit shaky still. So employee morale, working on that. Employee morale and the engagement will have an impact on how they communicate and interact with your customers, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about communication, and we talked about expectation a little bit here. And you know, there's so much going on. You've been reopening your business. You know, you opened your doors. You did all the hard work on restart plans and policies and procedures. You have opened, or you're going about to open, and you're ready to welcome your guests back. Now it's all about, okay, am I ready? How do I communicate? And there's so much happening. There's so much information, there's so much news, there's so much, so to cut through the noise and reach your customer, for that, you know, it's probably of benefit to spend a little bit time on having a communication plan. What have you done with them before? How you communicated to your customers and visitors before, and what you need to change now. It will help to kind of set the path and help to get your staff involved in the planning process and for them to know what to do. And here you can communicate what you've identified in the customer journey map earlier on these different touch points, which does include communication, of course, right? Not just how you do things, but what you do and how you communicate that. So you want to make sure that, coming back to employee training, that your employees are trained on your communication standards and how to communicate and what to communicate. So, and your customers' needs obviously should be front and center all the time. I mentioned to, you know, you want to provide an overview on what you do, what are your efforts and your procedures to provide a safe environment so guests feel comfortable to be on your premises. And, you know, again, it comes back to your staff, but as well, you know, what's important, what's not important. A quick show of hands maybe, or a quick note in the chat box here for a sec. Who in your organization or who of you does daily team meetings or morning huddles with your team? Okay, not so many at this point. Weekly meetings. Yeah, totally, Tracy. Weekly meetings. That's what we do. We do weekly meetings. We go over everything, what's been happening, where the challenges, you know, checking in with everybody. We establish a social hour actually every 3 weeks or so, just to get away from work and everybody working remote, still kind of finding this connection. I think really no matter how big your team is, and Christine mentioned, well, we have a small team, you probably have an opportunity to interact day to day all the time, but staying connected with your staff members during these difficult times, that's definitely really important. And then we talked earlier about the piece around, you know, expectations. Expectations are formed. Customers either have been with you before and they know exactly what to expect, but maybe now that looks different. Right here, through communication, you want to manage your customers' expectations right up front if you can. So, you know, you maybe a frequent customer say, well, we used to do like this for you all the time, but now we have to do it like this. For example, somebody books an annual tour in the winery somewhere out locally every year and has their 10 friends coming over, but now the tour bus can only take 6 people. Well, of course, they want to know that ahead of time, so they're not disappointed, right? So, and some examples I've seen in the industry with communication, there's a resort on Vancouver Island. They've sent out a very customized and personalized letter to their customers ahead on time before they opened. I've seen a video from a local restaurant here in Vancouver, and very snazzy with music and very hip, sharing what their health and safety regulations and guidelines are and how they do business, so that guests who come to the restaurant to enjoy a dining experience know exactly what to expect. And then a lot of hotels, for example, they implemented a very thorough cleaning program and they put that on their website. So if you come as a guest, you know exactly, okay, right now I'm coming to a hotel. Before I would get daily room service, I would get daily cleaning service, and now I might stay 2 or 3 days. There won't be anybody coming to my room, and if I want new towels or new linens, then I have to request for it and it will be dropped outside my door. So these changes to communicate that ahead on time, whatever your operating procedures might be. We don't have any hotel people on the call, I think, this morning. So I think that's really good. So there won't be any disappointment when you actually have your customers coming to you. And then I think valuing your customers, value your business during these difficult times. If they're coming back, build on the existing relationships you have with already existing customers, frequent customers. You might have a loyalty program. You'll be able to optimize that. Do the extra step to communicate. You might be able to reach out with a call and just check in with them and show that you care. Like, hey, how are you doing? Just want to make sure you're doing okay. How are things? And just a check-in if you have the capacity. And that's really appreciated. I mean, 89% of Canadians, another study I looked at, actually appreciate the brands they interact with on a regular basis to get in touch with them. And I thought, wow, that's really nice. I mean, I think it's very appreciative if I get a call and somebody doesn't try to sell me something, but just want to find out, hey, how I'm doing, and do I have any plans to visit in the near future? It's obviously a bit of a capacity issue there, and then show appreciation, for their business moving forward, and show them that you really appreciate them sticking with you during these times and coming back. But it has to be really authentic. You want to be real, the real you coming across, so they don't feel, oh, well, that's a bit of a sales pitch here, right? So few key points here to kind of highlight. We talked about the clear communication, and we talked about the importance of everybody on your team being on the same page. You want to empower your employees and train them to deal different situations. Alexandra, I'm thinking a little bit about your environment, and do your employees have all the tools they need to deal with certain situations which might be coming up? Or would it be more beneficial to have one specific person appointed as the point of contact to address any concerns? And you want to stay consistent with your brand across your communication, and make sure that everything looks professional, right? From all these decals you have to do nowadays, and the signage, and your communication through your website, your communication through email. It really kind of supports how you're moving forward. And then I think the piece around being transparent and realistic. Be realistic and share with your customers. Again, it comes back to expectations. What you can do, what you can offer, how things look like in the new business environment at your organization, so they know what to expect, and they know what you can do for them. If some of your touch points we talked about earlier in the customer journey map, if some of your service touch points have changed due to COVID, make sure that your employee first really know about it and you get their buy-in, and then they can communicate this with your customers. And it again then helps educate them. And again, we're talking about this whole repositioning on expectations there. Customer engagement. Keep the lines open, as I mentioned earlier. Stay connected with them. Make sure you respond to them, to timely questions. They come in with different anxiety levels depending on where they're coming from. Your employees come in with different anxiety levels, so you have quite a bit to manage when that all comes together. And so stay connected, and as I mentioned earlier, if they are with you, get feedback right there and then when you have them in front of you. What can we do better? How do you feel? Where are things at? It's really valuable, because then you'll be able to pivot really quickly and adapt to changing customers' needs. And I mean, right now, things change daily around here, right? And then be flexible. I talked about, the flexibility to adjust your services. Again, look at your different touch points, what you've always done before, what you have to do now, and just keep on consistently communicating that with your staff. So that's just kind of a few pieces to round up the piece around communication. Moving forward, I lined up a couple of scenarios, like sample scenarios, on some challenging situations you either have seen in your community or you find yourself in your own organization. And despite your best efforts on implementing all the guidelines, you might have customers who are not necessarily adhering to your guidelines or your protocols. And, you know, the importance of being very sensitive and come with the right amount of understanding and empathy and listening to your customers, but at the same time, making sure that there's a clear understanding that it is your responsibility to provide a healthy and safe environment for your staff and for other guests as well. We talked about employee training, training your staff on the protocols, give them the tools, and for them to know as well, what's the point where they have to escalate and get assistance by a supervisor or management to handle a specific situation. And as I mentioned, I mean, everybody comes in with a different level of anxiety here, and it's a different level of needs as well, what they're looking for, right? And a good example, a good idea might be to, you know, when you come together with your team and you might have the opportunity to work on the customer journey exercise, what are some of the scenarios you might be coming across with either other suppliers or with your customers, you know, with other organizations? What are some of the scenarios which potentially could come up in your environment, which could be posing a bit of a challenge? And then you could run some like a mock scenario, some practicing on, you know, implementing maybe some protocols or some scripts on giving them a little bit of help with the verbiage on what to say and how to move forward and how to handle a certain situation. And I have lined up a couple of scenarios here, pretty straightforward. And I thought, you know, after each one, I'm going to pause for a sec, and I would love to hear from you, and we can open up the mic if you're comfortable, small group, or use the chat function. I would like to hear, how would you approach a certain situation? I'm just going to interested to see what kind of comes back from our group here today. So the first one, we are very familiar with this, living with this day in, day out. There's a whole piece around physical distancing. So imagine a scenario, you have a lineup outside the Langley Visitor Center, starting to get really busy, and you only obviously have a certain capacity you can let in, and there's a lineup outside, and you have a person who, you know, gets really antsy and impatient, and they start speaking up, or, well, how long is this gonna take here? Why can't we move forward? They try to push ahead in the lineup and getting into other people's space. And it's kind of becoming a bit of a situation. What do you think needs to be considered when approaching this situation? What would you do? I'll give you a second to either use the chat or maybe just speak up.
I think from our perspective, I know we've dealt with a lot of people that in those situations do get, tend to get aggressive. Mm-hmm. So our approach is always to come at it, and our boss kind of uses the term sweeten them with honey. So you go into it in hopes of explaining the situation to them, that everyone's doing their best, and in hopes of creating understanding, but also going in with the reservation that if they do become aggressive, you need to stand your ground, and you need to stand by the regulations that have been put in place, which might come to asking them to step aside or asking them to leave if it comes to that. And I guess preparing staff to have that conversation, letting them know that it's okay if somebody becomes aggressive towards them to take those steps.
Absolutely, yeah, and remind them of what's expected, right? You have your frontline staff; they have a certain role to ensure that everybody stays safe, and I think it's really a compliance. Here, it's a compliance challenge, right? And we're talking about, okay, your staff has to deal with the situation. How do they maintain composure that you know, they don't get frustrated, so then the customer, the visitor, be able to kind of push the buttons, right? So to maintain the being calm, cool, and collective, and kind of really starting the situation at a quieter level, and they are there to reinforce the guidelines. It's your employees' responsibility to say, okay, this is what we have put in place to keep everybody, keep the safe environment here, and you know, outline the consequences, what's expected of them, and you know, be prepared to follow through if they, as you said, Alexandra, if they are not able to follow your guidelines, to follow through and say, well, these are the consequences, whatever that might look like for your business, right? Because you will have others who are going to observe this as well, and they will kind of take cue. So I think definitely, and it's all about this non-confrontational approach, and having the confidence. And not everybody who works in a frontline role, you maybe have someone who just started work like 4 weeks ago. Are they in the position and have the confidence and they'll be able to do that? Our second scenario, we have somebody at your property, at your establishment, who keeps on sneezing and you know, coughing, sits at the table. So what would you do? What would be your approach? I invite you to either put a note in the chat, or you might want to open up your mic on that. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Well, I think one approach is to, I think one thing to realize is that you can't make the customer do anything if they don't want to do it, right? Again, as I mentioned, your frontline staff are there to explain the procedures, and then it's up to them to make their choice. But in this situation, I think it's about the approach. So, I mean, assessing the situation, are they by themselves, are they with friends, have other guests or customers in the environment made comments or maybe noticed? Prepare yourself to have the conversation. And then how do you approach the customer? Obviously, you don't want to embarrass them in front of everybody else. So it's an opportunity to address them and invite them to you move to a quieter space and talk to them and inquire, well, this is the observation which has been brought to our attention, without blaming or criticizing or judging anything, because and then kind of telling them what the situation is, and they might say, well, we have allergies, right? I sneeze all the time. I do sneeze a lot in the spring. I've got allergies like crazy, but other guests and patrons who frequent your business, they don't know that, right? So having a conversation with them, having the empathy, and be able to listen, and then say, well, you know, it's about the well-being of everybody, yourself, our customers and our staff, and it's really the perception. You might have allergies, you might be allergic against whatever, right? But the perception of the guests, they won't know that. So how do you address that situation and come up with a solution, and then thank them for the understanding? Because I think it's a fine balance. You want to kind of maintain the positive experience for that one single customer you had to talk to, and without them kind of flying off the handle. And as well, then on the other hand, if you don't do anything, you have the other guests and patrons frequenting your business, and then they might negatively react on that. And you have to think about your brand reputation as well, and kind of securing the business for them, and that relationship with the rest of the guests, right? And you're right, Alexandra, it's important that you know, don't assume, don't have any preconception of what's happening. Have an open conversation, you know, don't judge, really see, okay, what do they come back with, and then figure out a solution together which does make them happy. I mean, yeah, you probably end up having to say, well, you won't be able to stay, but what can you do to kind of soften the blow, so to speak, right? And yeah, Christine, good point. If other patrons see you talking to that person, they realize, oh wow, it's our safe environment here it's been taken really seriously by the business. And this is probably a situation where you as a manager want to step in and take over. I think that's a bit much to ask for one of your frontline staff to handle if they haven't been in the business a long time and a bit more seasoned. You know, not everybody has the same comfort levels, but it's about being comfortable around everybody. And it shows a strong signal, maybe not in the moment for that one specific customer you had to talk to, but for everybody else for sure. Yeah, great feedback. Thank you for sharing that. And the last one, kind of imagine you have done everything around your property. You have put in the right guidelines, you have everything in place, customers feel very comfortable in your environment, it's pretty busy, whatever you do right now. And then above kind of normal conversations, you hear a customer approaching another customer and criticizing their behavior. And the situation has a potential to escalate. How would you approach that? Well, some tips here which have worked for me in certain situations. I come from a hotel background, so worked many years in support and frontline guest service, and then in HR to train others. I think it's about the approach on bringing in the tact and the diplomacy in the situation. And this might be something where you want to have another person kind of team up with you, where you talk to the complaining customer. Again, I always am in favor of moving somebody aside and have the conversation. And then you might have another of your colleagues talking to the other customer who got addressed, and then have the conversation. Well, I'm here to find out what's been going on. I want to hear your concerns, and you know, you want to kind of de-escalate the situation, making sure that it doesn't kind of get any more fury out there, and really kind of emphasize the role you have as an employee or as a manager or business owner to address situations which come up. So maybe share with the customer, well, you know, you can come to us directly rather than to customers and share your concerns. It's our role and responsibility to you know, ensure a safe environment for everybody involved here, and look at options on, okay, this is what we're going to do to handle the situation. So you feel that the complaining customer feels that he has a voice and gets addressed, because clearly he's not comfortable. And so you kind of reassure him that you're going to be taking some action, and that's your role to deal with that. And then following that, you could talk to the other customer if needed. So again, it's all about the balance between reinforcement, but understanding and listening at the same time. Any other comments on that little scenario, or any questions? Great. A few key takeaways here I wanted to mention. I said that's a very compact presentation. So going back to the customer journey, take the time, if you not have already done this, if you're already full up and running, but take the time to really identify the different touch points of your customer's journey with your organization. Look at these little things within a day-to-day operation. What needs to be addressed? What needs to be addressed? Is anything you need to change? Do you need to adapt your service? Do you need to modify your communication? Look at all these little customer interactions and make sure that you have a plan in place to address every single one of them. And again, training your team, make sure that they're confident, they have the tools they need, they know about the protocols so they can reinforce them, they know about protocols in regards to handling challenges, responding to challenging situations. And when they have to escalate, talk about your communication strategy and your protocols around your business operation, and really keep on nurturing your customer relationships. I think that's probably one of the key takeaways I find really important, is the customer relationship piece. They're your bread and butter. You want to make sure that you stay connected, you communicate with them, you want to have them coming back, increase the consumer confidence, which is still a little bit shaky, right? We obviously see a lot happening now with, we're in phase 3, which is really great news, and people are opening up a bit more and branching out further, but really staying connected and ensure them that you're there for them to address their needs, and so they're gonna stay your loyal customer. I think that that's really an important piece. And if you need any resources, or you being at health and safety, any best practices, you have maybe questions around HR, you have employees who do not want to come back to work, or can't come back to work, or refuse to come back to work. How do you handle this? We have everything on our website at gotohr.ca. You will see it right on the front page. We have different sections you can click on. We have centralized all the information in one kind of central spot for you to access, because you have so much happening at your organization, running the business, running your teams, staying afloat, survival for your business. Most of you probably don't have a dedicated HR person who can take care of all that stuff. So you're wearing 5 hats at the same time, being the HR manager, the operations manager, the owner, frontline person. So there's a lot coming at you. It has probably in the last 3 months, and it's going to continue for a little while longer. So reach out for all the different resources there. Yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to share this morning. And I think it might be great if we want to open up the chat box, or maybe being such a small group, maybe just unmute yourself if you have any questions, and we can have a bit of a chat on anything you might want to dive in a bit deeper, or if you have maybe a certain situation you'd like to discuss with the team on the call here, and we can provide some feedback.
I think this has been excellent. I really appreciate your customer journey, because we haven't opened yet. So I think that'll be really important for us to sort of set out our expectations, explain what we've done in terms of health and safety, and then think about our touch points during the visit as well, all the different things. And then what I really sort of got out of this is maybe we hit people up for feedback before they leave. About how their experience was. I think that will be excellent for us.
Yeah, good point, Christine. And I think it adds so much value when they're still there, and that can be in a regular conversation. Hey, how's your day today? Is there anything else you need? And hey, how are we doing? These quick check-in, and it shows that you really care. It's another touch point where you can reinforce and nurture your relationships, right?
Yeah, I think that will be excellent, because for us too, typically if people don't have a good experience, they will go online.
And so quickly, there's
lots of little groups and things like that. So if we could sort of head that off at the pass, then that would be excellent. And I love the idea of the scenarios. We have so many staff. And so I think we call them simulations instead of scenarios, but same idea. Instead of doing a lifeguard, simulation, it'll be the public relations and those exact ones. What do you do if people aren't physical distancing? What do you do if people are showing symptoms? And so we have them all set and ready for staff.
And that's great, Christine. You're already so ahead on the game here. And it will really increase your employees' confidence as well. And that, them giving them the tools how to deal with these different scenarios. And it's not always going to be perfect. And there's the curveball which comes flying in your direction. But there's so many situations they can take care of right away because they have the confidence and the knowledge. And then again, that impacts the customer experience right there and then, where the customer goes, oh, well, okay, I feel that I'm really get looked after here. And there are lots of you know, samples on customer journey mapping. If you would like some more resources on that or some more help, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you with that. I work often with one of our consultants as well, who is actually, one of his prime areas of his expertise is customer journey mapping and having workshops and how to kind of create these maps and what it means and how to identify each touch point. So if there's anything I can support with, feel free to reach out for sure.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
Very much.
Tracy.
I just wanted to echo on what Christine said was, yeah, so we as the film industry phase 3, so we're just opening up now. And I really liked what you said about reaching out to our clients and just checking in on them now to see how they're feeling about returning back. So like they're coming into uncharted territory. Being in the film industry, everyone's going to be wearing masks. There's going to be temperature checks. It's going to be so different. And I think it's going to be important to call them up, Zoom them, find out how they're doing, how they're feeling, what we can do to make them feel so much more comfortable coming back into our studios. So I just wanted to say I really appreciated that. I think it's a great idea, and I want to implement that by Monday morning. So I really love it.
That's great, Tracy. And yeah, we are all embarking on a new journey. Yourself, your employees, your customers, we're on this new journey. It's unknown territory. It's challenging. How do we adapt? And there is so much going on, right? And in addition to running your operation and trying to financially survive in these tricky times.
And I think it's like to be really sensitive too, because I think I just find wherever you go, everyone seems to be just on edge right now, and anything can make somebody tick. And so just to be sensitive and kind and just do everything you can to make them feel so much comfortable, or more comfortable in, in their new work environment. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the extra portion on kindness and understanding and the empathy piece, where, hey, you don't know where they're coming from, right? That you don't know their experiences, you don't know what situations your customers have to deal with at home, or your employees, as a matter of fact, right? So the extra understanding and ensuring, hey, you can reach out anytime, that goes a long way. I think people really appreciate that. And Alexandra was saying, preparing the staff for receiving negative feedback. Absolutely. If you have somebody flying off the handle or somebody standing there and criticizing and really being upset, that can really impact your frontline staff emotionally. And oh my goodness, I feel really bad now. How do I handle this? Going through this simulation, that's a really good idea. It's kind of, you're not into this full-blown on conflict resolution, but it's like, okay, what are the steps of service recovery? What you need to look at to be able to provide them with the tools. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I just have a quick question. I'm curious because we never close, being in transportation and servicing the construction industry. We're kind of in that in between of being essential. And I've noticed that initially people were very understanding about if we were experiencing delays or anything like that. There hasn't been any change in that, where our drivers especially are still experiencing delays where they have to adhere to certain protocols, not getting out of their truck and experiencing delays that way. But it seems more recently people are almost expecting things to go back to normal, where they're not being as understanding when we're experiencing delays. So I'm just curious if anyone else in other industries has noticed that and how you might approach that with the customer.
Yeah, does anybody want to kind of chime in on that? That's a really good point there. Anybody experience that on the call here? So yeah, Alexandra, that's a really interesting observation. And I think people have the tendency to say, okay, when are we going back to normal? And not everybody understanding that the normals from 3 months ago is never ever going to be the normal. Well, that's my personal opinion. Not ever going to be the same normal again, right? At least for a while. And yeah, people are quick to default to the before kind of expectations. And I think here it's, as long as you do your part, you can't influence behaviors of others. You can't you know, you can't change the way they think. I think it's about, Christine, CEO, thank you. It's about keeping your communication channels open. Your drivers need to know what protocol is. They stay friendly and, you know, have the listening skills, and they really ensure and focus on the positive customer experience. And as long as you communicate expectations to everybody involved, that's all you can really do.
Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, something can get challenging for your team because they have to probably encounter situations every single day, to make sure you support them as well morally, right? So they have an opportunity to vent, they have an opportunity to call you up and say, hey, Alexandra, I had a really shitty situation here and I'm really not feeling so great. So be able to provide that emotional support for your staff so they stay resilient towards any of the outside influences they might have to deal with. But just keep on communicating and keeping that support system. And then, you know, you can't make customers do what they don't want to do, right? They are who they are. So a little bit.
Alex, just to give you a little bit of advice, at the studio, what we do is we use words like, oh, this is, you know, restart martini, or the new normal. And so like when we're talking to them, we just make sure that that's part of our, you know, what we're talking to them about, so that they're constantly reminded. It's like, oh yeah, it's not back to normal. Oh yeah, this is the new policy. Because I just find the more you say it, the more it kind of then transitions with people.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
When you're walking out in the grocery store and you're walking out to the parks, it does look like normal. And so a lot of people are starting to see that normality again, but they need to realize that there are a lot of situations that it's not going to be like that again or anymore.
Yeah, absolutely, Tracy. And that comes back to the communication piece, right? Everybody speaks the same language of your team. You communicate the same information, that they don't speak to one of your staff members and they hear this, and then 10 minutes later they speak to somebody else and they hear that. Really being very clear. And I can't overemphasize the importance of keeping your team in the loop of what's going on. Share the good, the bad, and the ugly with them. So they really are invested in your organization. There is buy-in, and then you show a really strong front to your customers and be able to provide them the service they're used to getting from you as an organization.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, any other comments, questions? I mean, feel free as well to reach out to me individually. You know, if you have any questions you either want to talk offline about, or you think, hey, this wasn't addressed today, I like a bit more feedback, or hey, I need a specific resource where I can find that. There is so much going on. I mean, everybody does webinars in the last few months. There's so many resources, so many websites. You probably get inundated with information, but you know, if there's anything we as our team can support and help with, feel free to reach out. And yeah, it's been great to have you on the call and having the opportunity for me to share some of our insights and things we've been seeing in the industry. So yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you. Summer, I bring it over to you at this point, I guess.
Yeah, great. Excellent. That was fantastic. Learned a lot from that, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. And thank you for spending the morning with us. And yeah, if you want to find the recording, it'll be on our website, or like I said, you can contact me as well. So I hope everyone has a great weekend. And Andrea, I hope you have fun camping. And
thank you. Great weekend to everybody. And yeah, have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all online. Bye.
Bye.